Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Peter Romness. He's the cybersecurity principal in the CISO's advisor's office at Cisco Systems. Peter, good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
And I think it's fair to say that working conditions have changed permanently with a lot of people teleworking, even with 50% required days in the office. That means 50% of the people are going to be teleworking half the time. And so this is the way it is. And agencies are getting settled into this multi-cloud environment, mobile type of way. So where do you think they struggle the most to secure the users, the end user devices themselves, and the applications, which is really the point of all of this?
Yeah, well, the way I like to talk about it is that we have users, we have all of these devices, and then we have all of our data and all of our applications, and they're no longer in our nice little data center in our own little environment. They're everywhere. And so, it's pandemonium, I tell you. And that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but you have all of your stuff for your organization all over the place. And so it makes this, it makes it hard to manage. Just seeing what's going on in your environment and being able to react to it becomes a huge challenge for everybody. And, I wouldn't say that in the government space that it's any worse or any better. Some customers are on down the road trying to address this, and some are still have their hands in the air trying to figure out what to do.
And it's not simply an academic question, because the bad actors, the cyber hacks and so forth, are trying to take advantage of these, perhaps what they see as gaps in the cybersecurity posture of large organizations.
Yeah, and in cybersecurity jargon, that's the attack surface, right? So it's just this much bigger area with many more places, more likely more vulnerabilities because of it. And so there's just all of these opportunities for the hackers, the miscreants, the bad guys to go after. And they just need to find one little problem in your environment in order to take advantage of it and to, do all the bad things they do and try and make some money.
Yeah, so in some ways, the perimeter is more porous. And at the same time, given the environment that people are anywhere at a given time, the opportunities for phishing might be riper. So you've got really two major cyber challenges here then, correct?
Yes. But, I think the last I heard, about 90% of all attacks start with a phishing email. And then they go from there and start to exploit other vulnerabilities in the environment. So yes, phishing is a huge problem, and it's one of the things that I think people are very focused on right now, of trying to make sure that the phishing is not successful.
And so what's your best advice to agency leadership, to your fellow CISOs, to those in charge of all the security? What should they be prioritizing with respect to making sure databases, applications, devices are safe?
So there are a lot of things that leaders can do to protect their environment. You mentioned phishing before. And oftentimes what the bad actors are doing when they're phishing is trying to get into the environment. A common way that they do that is by trying to trick the user into giving up their username and password. And there's been really good guidance that has come out of the White House and Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, about going towards a zero trust environment. Zero trust is a much overhyped term. Many people are sick of hearing it, but it's a really great way of looking at how to protect your environment. The guidance from the White House and OMB says that all federal organizations should be driving towards zero trust, with specific timelines and requirements for planning and moving towards zero trust. one of the first things that they say in that is that you should make sure that as a user logs in, that that username and password is being used by the actual person who's supposed to be using it and not somebody else. And this is where the idea of multi-factor authentication comes in. And that's one of the first requirements that came from the OMB directive, is that you should implement zero trust or implement multi-factor authentication for every login. And so we are seeing agencies do that, and they are moving quickly. And the cool thing about multi-factor authentication is that it can be implemented very quickly. And it's become much easier for users. It's no longer typing in a string of characters from a little fob you used to carry around. Now it's a push to your phone and you can say, yes, that's me, or no, that's not me. So it's you know, from a user standpoint, it's gotten better also. So this whole idea of looking at your environment, being able to see what's going on in the environment, having these precautions that take away a lot of the original threat, are really good progress that we're seeing in throughout government.
And despite the best measures that agencies take, things will happen, things do happen. And that brings up the idea of resiliency when they do happen. Is
Yes.
it your sense that agencies, as they take these measures and as they continue with hybrid working and multi-cloud and the rest of it, that
Yeah.
they are also gaining resiliency here?
I think we're starting to see some gains. Now, what we are also seeing is that as we implement all of these tools, and as all of our people, our devices, our data, our applications are all coming from all over the place, it's the ability to manage a cybersecurity, you know, an appropriate cybersecurity posture has become one of the major struggles. And from most people I talk to, even if you have the funding to, you know, buy all the tools and fund the people you need, oftentimes you can't find the people. So we're seeing a big drive in agencies to try and consolidate and automate their cybersecurity. And you know, if you have multiple devices, you have to train separate people on all of the different devices, and it becomes very hard. And even then, you know, you're trying to manage everything in the cloud and on-prem. And so that becomes a mess. So, you know, we're starting to look at using cloud to an advantage. And so, you know, you may have your data in the AWS cloud or the Azure cloud or the Google cloud or the Oracle cloud, or you may have it all over the place. And in fact, most people do in multiples of those clouds. They have security tools inside of them, but they're all different. And the way that you get to apps in all of those is different. And so that compounds it even more. So, you know, we're looking at, okay, how do we make it so that you can manage your security from one place? And it doesn't matter which of those clouds you're in. And it doesn't matter if it's from your private cloud that you've created, or managing the devices in your network environment. So, you know, from user to device to whether it's web or email and all the way to your applications, how can you get to see it all? And that's where, you know, we've started to put our efforts into making, you know, one place that you can see everything, and that, you know, you can train your people on one device, and then it will manage all of that for you. And that's kind of where we're headed, because we see that as a way that we can really help our government customers.
And just a final quick question. Do you think there's such a thing as a culture of security? And can that actually be something an agency can develop along with everything else they're trying to do
Yeah,
culturally?
and in fact, you know, in this job, you know, it's kind of, my job title is kind of nebulous in the CISO advisor's office. And what that means is I get to go around the country talking to chief information security officers. And one of the main topics they have is, how do I bring along my organization in this struggle? Cybersecurity needs to be a team sport. You know, you need to train your users. And users, you can't blame your users, but you need their help. Sometimes they're fallible, and that's why we have tools to back them up. So we have security tools but also really key is bringing on the upper management. So I call it managing down and managing up. And bringing the management of your organization is also very important. And we talk about telling a story in the language that the folks that you're trying to get on your team can understand. It has gotten easier recently because of all the bad things happening in the news with cybersecurity. So I feel like executives are primed to hear it. And now it's up to the job of the cybersecurity people to put it in a format they can understand and that they care about. I like to talk about focusing on what the executives are trying to accomplish with their agency, and not being the cybersecurity person that has to say no all the time. Imagine if you could go to your upper executives and say, that thing that you wanted to do that we couldn't do before. Well, now with our ability to see what's going on in our environment and be able to react to it quickly, we can do that. And we can make these risk-based decisions that will allow our users to log in from any device, from anywhere, and get to any data or app that's in any cloud in the world, and we can do it safely.
All right. Peter Romness is cybersecurity principal for the CISO Advisors Office at Cisco Systems. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you. Great to see you, Tom.
I'm Tom Temin. You're watching Federal News Network. Let's go back to the studio now for more on the Cloud Exchange.